For centuries, humanity lived under a mask the galaxy never understood. A mask made of silence, patience, and careful weakness, because Earth knew something the stars didn't. Humans acted small, acted fragile, acted harmless, while alien empires laughed at them from glittering council chambers and powerful war rooms. They mocked Earth in private broadcasts, calling humans primitive, soft, slow, a young race pretending to be brave. But humans did not answer, not because they feared the galaxy, but because they feared something far older, something buried under their own ice, something that once shook the Earth so violently that ancient continents split, something recorded in the oldest human archives as the sleeping enemy. So humanity stayed quiet. Not humble. Not scared. Just preparing. Far beneath Antarctica's frozen mountains, miles under black rock and ancient ice, humans built the Arctic Railgun. So massive that it touched both the Earth's crust and the upper sky through elevator shafts so reinforced they looked like the bones of a dead titan. It wasn't a weapon. It was a warning. A promise. A last chance. Only the highest leaders on Earth knew the truth. If this wakes up again, we will need something unimaginable to stop it. And so Earth kept the weapon secret, hidden behind the mask of weakness. But the galaxy saw only silence and mistook it for fear. Meanwhile, the Shun Dominion, famous for burning colonies and conquering species, looked at Earth like a hungry wolf watching an unguarded child. Their ruthless warlord, Vaska, who turned 10,000 worlds into rubble, announced proudly in his war throne, "The humans pretend to be peaceful. They pretend to be civilized. Today we test whether they survive our breath." His commanders cheered, their armor glowing with crimson warlight, and within hours, 900 Dominion warships left their home system and warped straight toward Earth, carrying enough firepower to erase half a galaxy sector. Every alien race watched with amusement. Some whispered bets. Some celebrated early. Many said, "Earth will beg for mercy." But Earth did not beg. Earth did not respond. Earth did not even move. No ships launched. No fleets assembled. No diplomats spoke. The global network remained calm, as if preparing for a cold sunrise, not an extinction event. The Dominion mistook silence for surrender. They would soon learn what silence truly meant. The moment their fleet entered the solar system, scanners across Mars, Jupiter stations, and lunar outposts recorded something impossible. Earth's magnetic field changed. Just slightly. Just enough for experienced human engineers to tense up. Inside the Arctic Railgun chamber, alarms lit up, not in panic but in a cold, calculated sequence. Lights turning on like eyes opening after centuries of dreamless sleep. Engineers stood ready, hands shaking as the ancient system awakened. The rail barrel, over 80 kilometers long and built from metals the galaxy didn't even have names for, began charging energy silently. No vibration. No sound. Just rising power. In space, the Dominion fleet moved smoothly toward Earth, confident they would crush a weak species in minutes. Their flagship, the Red Maw, was nearly the size of a small moon and armed with cannons capable of tearing open star cores. Its bridge glowed red as Warlord Vaska bared his teeth and announced, "Prepare orbital bombardment. Humanity will remember who rules this galaxy." His crew roared. But then, Earth answered. Not with words. Not with threats. Just with a single soundless action that would break the galaxy's understanding forever. The sky above Earth split open. Not like a beam. Not like fire. Not like human missiles. But like reality itself bent around something moving faster than light. Faster than physics. Faster than logic. Every Dominion sensor died instantly. Every map turned into static. Every weapon targeting system collapsed at the same moment. Officers screamed, thinking their systems were hacked. But what tore through space wasn't hacking or technology. It was speed, raw, merciless speed, compressed into a single silver rail shot fired from Antarctica with force unimaginable even to warlike species. The galaxy's highest scientists, watching from distant observatories, froze in their labs. The projectile didn't glow. It didn't roar. It didn't burn. It simply disappeared from the planet and reappeared directly in front of the Dominion fleet, traveling so fast it bent starlight into a ring behind it. Every incoming Dominion broadcast turned into a single horrifying warning. Something is coming, before the message was cut off. The railshot tore straight through the Red Moor's front hull. No explosion. No crack. No fire. The projectile passed cleanly through, leaving a perfect hole the size of a city. For half a second, the ship floated silently. Then the hole widened. Metal peeled apart like fabric. Entire decks vanished. The flagship broke into two quiet pieces, and then both halves dissolved into microscopic dust. It wasn't destruction. It was erasure. The Dominion fleet screamed as their flagship disappeared without a trace. What was that? No weapon can, sensors can't. We lost the commander. But none of their systems worked. None of their maps updated. None of their minds understood. Across the galaxy, tens of thousands of alien civilizations watched through surveillance networks. Every empire froze. Every ruler fell silent. Every scientist stared at their displays in disbelief. They replayed the footage again and again, but nothing changed. The projectile had no energy signature, no radiation, no heat trail, no chemical trace. It was pure force, pure speed, pure terror. For the first time in centuries, the galaxy had no words. Humanity had fired a weapon beyond their understanding. And they had done it calmly. The silence that followed was not just quietness. It was fear. It was confusion. It was shock. It was the galaxy realizing they had misjudged Earth so badly that they didn't even know what humans truly were. Warlord Vasca's fleet went into chaos. Ships rammed into each other trying to retreat. Officers cried in panic. Commanders screamed that their systems weren't responding. And at the edge of the fleet, the Dominion's second-in-command whispered the most terrifying words spoken in centuries. That wasn't even a weapon, that was a message. The Dominion fleet that had once moved like a storm of steel now drifted in stunned, shaking silence, every warship trembling as if the vacuum around them had turned into ice. Officers who once boasted about conquering 20 worlds sat frozen in disbelief, staring at screens that showed the impossible moment again and again. The moment their massive flagship, their pride, their symbol of power, was sliced apart by a silent silver line that moved too fast to see. No shockwave. No explosion. Just disappearance. The weapon hadn't even treated them as enemies. It treated them as objects in its path, meaningless, fragile, unworthy of resistance. Inside the second command ship, Admiral Cora, known for breaking fleets in a single order, stood motionless, feeling her heart hammer painfully as she whispered, This cannot be human." Her officers didn't answer. Some shook, some cried quietly, others held their helmets against their chests as if waiting for death to follow the same silent way it struck their flagship. But nothing happened. Earth didn't fire again. Earth didn't send ships. Earth didn't even speak. It was the silence after the shot that broke them more than the shot itself. Every Dominion ship reported the same terrifying results. Scanners soft dead, engines partially locked, trajectory systems confused, and long-range comms stuck in a repeating static pattern. The static wasn't random. It was a human code, steady and cold, repeating every few seconds like a heartbeat against metal walls. 3 sharp pulses. Then silence. 3 sharp pulses. Then silence. Cora felt the back of her neck tighten. "What is that message?" she whispered. Engineers tried decoding it but shook their heads helplessly. Finally, one young Dominion technician, voice trembling, said, It's basic Earth Morse code." The bridge held its breath. "What does it say?" Cora demanded, throat dry. The technician swallowed hard. "It says, stop." The word slammed into the crew like a physical force. Stop. A single command. A command from a species they thought beneath them. A command after wiping out their flagship without a sound. The Dominion pride cracked like glass. Meanwhile, across the galaxy, alien councils, research academies, and intelligence networks all reported the same fear. Elders trembled. Scientists fainted from shock. High chancellors whispered, humans fired something the galaxy has no word for, because what they saw didn't fit into any science they had. It wasn't plasma. It wasn't particle. It wasn't antimatter. It wasn't dark energy. It was something new. Something terrifying. Something that shouldn't exist. Some believed humans cracked the speed of light. Others believed humans weaponized gravity. A few began whispering an ancient fear. Did humanity awaken an old Earth god? Rumors spread like wildfire across star nations. Human ambassadors tried calming meetings, but nobody listened. No one could. Because every alien mind replayed the image of that moon-sized ship turning to dust before it even knew it was dead. Back inside the Dominion fleet, panic spread like disease. Soldiers pressed against walls, praying to gods who suddenly felt small. Older commanders whispered stories their grandfathers once told. Stories about humans being unpredictable, dangerous, hiding strange power in their hearts. They were always different. One commander whispered, shaking. Too calm, too adaptable, too good at surviving. Cora slammed her hands down. Enough! Get us out of here. But the moment she said it, every ship in the fleet shook violently as an invisible shockwave rippled across space. Lights flickered. Decks rattled. The humming of engines dropped. And a new symbol appeared on all screens, Earth's symbol. Not military. Not diplomatic. Just a single glowing circle of white light representing the Arctic Railgun. The bridge crew screamed as the symbol expanded on their screens, as if watching an eye open in their direction. Then the second message arrived. 4 dots. A pause. 4 dots. A pause. Cora whispered, voice cracking. What does it mean now? The technician stared in horror. It means, do not come closer. The Dominion fleet froze. Not from orders. From fear. The kind that creeps inside bones. Meanwhile on Earth, inside the Arctic Railgun facility buried deep under Antarctica, human engineers worked silently in dim red light as the rail cannon cooled from its first fire in centuries. Steam hissed from the massive coils. Ice cracked from the vibrations. The ground itself seemed to breathe like a living creature that had awakened. Commander Rhea Talon, the woman responsible for monitoring the weapon, stood with her hands trembling on the railing, watching the power readings drop slowly. She was pale, breathing fast, her eyes full of heavy guilt. I fired it, she whispered. For the first time, in the galaxy's history, her assistant touched her arm gently. It saved Earth. Rhea shook her head. The galaxy will never forget what we did. They will fear us forever now. In orbit, Earth's civilian networks remained calm. People went to work. Children attended school. Governments acted normal. Earth treated the event like a minor storm. This terrified aliens even more, because they realized humans had fired their strongest weapon without breaking a sweat. Guilt, fear, power, silence. It all mixed into toxic confusion across the galaxy. And deep inside the Dominion fleet, Cora's command ship received the third message. 2 pulses. A pause. 2 pulses. A pause. The technician's hands shook so hard he almost dropped his console. This one means, do not test us. The Dominion pride shattered completely. Some ships powered down voluntarily. Others tried to flee but were too scared to activate engines. Warriors who once conquered solar systems now knelt on their decks, unable to face a species they had thought weak. Across the galaxy, fear turned into respect, dangerous respect. Some species whispered, maybe humans are rising, others whispered, maybe humans were never weak. But deep beneath Antarctica, Rhea's heart pounded with a different fear. The Earth trembled softly, not from the weapon, but from something far below. Something massive. Something ancient. Something moving. She whispered to herself as alarms blinked softly, please, please don't wake now, not yet. Because the railgun wasn't built for the Dominion. It was built for what was inside the Earth. And it had started to stir. The Dominion fleet hung helpless in the dark silence of space, 900 ships shaking from fear that none of their strongest warriors had ever felt in their lifetime. But fear was now mixed with something worse. Confusion, humiliation, and the painful realization that the weak humans they mocked for centuries had unleashed something so far beyond their understanding that even their science failed. Inside the Dominion command ship, Admiral Cora paced in panic, her armored boots echoing across the trembling bridge as she stared at the blinking Morse code message still frozen on every screen. "Do not test us." Her throat tightened and she whispered harshly, "If this is their warning shot, what is their real firepower?" No one answered. Officers looked at their hands, their reflections, anywhere except her eyes. They were soldiers built to crush fear, but fear now crushed them. But the panic was not one-sided. Deep under Antarctica, inside the underground chambers of the Arctic Railgun facility, Commander Rhea Talon's heart raced as she watched the ground beneath the railgun begin to vibrate in a slow, rhythmic pattern. It wasn't the weapon. It wasn't the Dominion fleet. It was something else. Something old. Something living. A low rumble rolled through the foundation like a beast turning in its sleep, and everyone inside the facility froze in terror. Engineers stared at the shaking walls. Some stepped back instinctively. One whispered, "Did we wake it?" Rhea's fists tightened. She already knew the answer. The tremor wasn't from above. It was rising from the deep Earth core, exactly where the ancient warning files said the sleeper once broke through millions of years ago. Rhea whispered shakily, "We fired downward first, to keep it asleep. But the shot that went upward may have disturbed the ice." Her voice cracked. "If it rises, the galaxy will never be ready." She turned to her team, fear burning behind her eyes. "Increase seismic sensors. Check temperature flux. Run deep Earth scans." But even before her orders spread, the facility lights flickered, and the temperature in the room dropped sharply. Coldness crawling up the air like the breath of something that didn't belong in this world. Rhea's assistant shivered violently. "Commander, this isn't normal geothermal activity." Rhea closed her eyes for 1 second, gathering the courage she trained her entire life to hold. "I know." Above the facility, on Earth's orbit, the Dominion fleet slowly stabilized. Admiral Cora forced herself to breathe, trying to regain some dignity after witnessing the end of their flagship. But just as she opened her mouth to give a retreat order, her sensors flared with a new alert: human activity detected. A small human shuttle rose from Earth's atmosphere, moving slowly, calmly, fearlessly, as if the railgun strike earlier had been nothing more than a morning exercise. Dominion officers leaned forward, confused. "One ship? Only one?" Someone whispered, "Do they want to talk? Or warn us?" Cora stared at the single white cruiser drifting toward them like a quiet messenger of an angry god. The ship transmitted a voice with chilling calmness. "This is Commander Rhea Talon of Earth. We ask the Dominion fleet to hold position. Do not advance. Do not retreat. Do not fire." A Dominion commander shouted in panic, "She's alone." But another officer shook his head, voice trembling, "Alone, after firing a weapon that erased our flagship. That is not weakness. That is confidence beyond logic." Cora swallowed, feeling shame leak through her pride. She activated the channel. "Human commander, why did you destroy our flagship? Why fire such a weapon?" Rhea's voice carried a quiet sadness. "We didn't fire at you." Silence crushed the Dominion bridge again. "What?" An officer choked. "Then who?" Rhea breathed in, steady but full of sorrow. "The Arctic railgun was built for something beneath our feet. Something older than our species. Something we were trying to keep asleep." The Dominion froze. "You're telling us the weapon wasn't meant for us?" "No," Rhea whispered. "Your fleet entered its danger zone." The rail shot was redirected upward automatically. The Dominion felt another wave of humiliation. They were erased by an accident. But then a new fear dug into their hearts. What monster needs a weapon like that? Cora's voice lowered, barely audible. "What is this thing under your planet?" Rhea didn't answer immediately. Her breaths were slow, heavy, trembling. "A creature. A force. A memory from Earth's oldest age. Our ancestors wrote that when it moved, continents shifted. When it woke, life nearly ended." The Dominion officers stepped back instinctively, as if the thing under Earth might hear them even from space. Rhea's voice darkened. "We built the railgun to kill it, if it rises again." The Dominion command room fell silent. Shock. Horror. The realization that humans weren't preparing for war. They were preparing for survival against something unimaginable. Cora's voice trembled. "Why are you telling us this?" And Rhea whispered the truth that would haunt the galaxy, because it woke for a moment, right after we fired. The Dominion bridge erupted with screams as officers stumbled back, some collapsing into their seats. Cora's blood ran cold. It woke? It is waking? Now? Rhea's silence was answer enough. On Earth, the ground rumbled again, harder, longer. Ice cracked across Antarctica. Birds fled the sky. Animals roared in panic. Humans felt a pressure in their bones like an ancient voice calling from beneath their feet. Rhea watched terror spreading across seismic monitors. "We don't have much time." Dominion ships backed away instinctively. Some fired engines. Some attempted retreat. But Rhea's voice boomed, "Do not move." Cora snarled, "Why?" "We should flee," Rhea shouted back, her voice shaking with raw fear. "If you run, IT will feel it. Movement makes it awake faster." The entire Dominion armada froze in place, not because they respected humans, but because for the first time, a human sounded more terrified than they were. And nothing terrified the galaxy more than a scared human. The Dominion fleet did not dare move after Rhea's warning. 900 ships frozen in place like prey standing on thin ice above a sleeping monster. Every warrior who once shouted victory songs now holding their breath so tightly their lungs burned. Even Admiral Cora, whose name once caused empires to surrender, stood completely still on her command bridge, afraid even the sound of her voice might echo across space and reach the thing beneath Earth's ice. The silence became suffocating, a silence so thick it felt alive, and every alien felt the same question twisting inside their hearts. What kind of horror could terrify humanity? The species that just fired a weapon strong enough to erase a moon-sized ship? Meanwhile, deep under Antarctica, the Arctic Railgun facility shook with a slow, heavy tremor that felt like a heartbeat rising from the planet's core. Engineers clung to consoles, alarms blinked weakly, and cold mist crawled along the floor. Rhea Talon stared at the seismic monitor as the graph spikes climbed higher with each pulse. She felt her throat tighten painfully because she knew this rhythm. She had read the ancient files. She had watched the restricted recordings. This tremor was the same frequency described by humanity's oldest ancestors as the pulse of the devourer, the ancient force that once clawed through Earth's mantle before humans learned to speak. Rhea whispered to herself, her voice trembling with fear and guilt. "No, not now, please. Not while the railgun is cooling." Her assistant approached with shaking hands. "Commander, if it wakes, the railgun may not charge in time." Rhea closed her eyes, a cold tear sliding down as she whispered, "Then billions could die." Above ground, Antarctica cracked like old bone. A shockwave rolled across the frozen plains, sending snow bursting into the air as if something massive moved beneath the ice. Cameras mounted on the surface shook violently, capturing terrifying footage. Giant fissures opening and closing, plumes of steam rising from holes where the temperature should have been far below freezing. One camera caught something worse, a faint glow, deep beneath the cracks, shifting like an enormous golden eye turning slowly in the darkness. Rhea's heart dropped. It's sensing movement, it's looking for the threat, and the Dominion fleet, sitting above Earth, were the largest moving objects near the planet. Rhea slammed her fist on the console in panic. If they move even 1 kilometer, that thing will rise completely. Back in orbit, Admiral Cora heard every word, and her blood turned to ice. "You're saying, we are not its enemy, until we move." Rhea's voice cracked with desperation. "Yes. Stay still. Stay absolutely still. The creature reacts to motion, to vibrations, to patterns of energy. It hunts anything it senses." The Dominion commanders looked horrified. "We are sitting in space. What motion?" Rhea inhaled shakily. "Your engines. Your shields. Your life support. Your hearts. Everything leaves a vibration." The bridge went dead silent. One officer whispered, "We're already dead," but Rhea, forcing herself to stay strong, answered, "Not if we work together." Cora blinked, confused and terrified. "Together? Why would you help us?" And Rhea finally said the truth that humans had buried for centuries. Because the last time that creature woke, it destroyed Earth, and half the species living on it. We survived. Barely. But if it rises today, it will not stop at Earth. It will go through the galaxy until it finds more life to devour. This is not about humans or Dominion. This is about stopping the end of everything. The Dominion crew stared at her through the screen, trembling at the realization that humanity wasn't protecting the railgun from aliens. They were protecting the galaxy from something ancient and starving beneath their own world. Suddenly, another tremor struck the planet. So strong that even ships in orbit felt it. Every Dominion ship creaked. Some lights flickered. Some engines sputtered. Some warriors fell to their knees. On Earth, massive cracks tore across the ice, releasing pillars of steam and glowing orange light. Something deep underground scraped against rock, a sound so loud that it vibrated through Earth's crust and echoed into orbit like an ancient scream muffled by stone. Rhea grabbed the railing as the tremor almost threw her to the ground. "It's rising faster." Her assistant cried out, "Commander, the railgun temperature is still too high. We can't fire again yet." Rhea slammed her palms against the console, panic rising like fire in her throat. "We need time. Just a little time. Enough for the coils to cool." Cora heard this and felt the entire weight of the galaxy crush her chest. She turned to her trembling officers. "Turn off all systems. All shields. All power. Shut everything down. We must become invisible." We'll suffocate," an officer whispered. Cora's jaw tightened. Better to suffocate quietly than die loudly. Dominion ships began shutting off systems one by one, darkness spreading across their hulls like dying stars. Lights dimmed. Engines powered down. Commanders held their breath. Entire fleets turned into frozen metal ghosts drifting in space. Rhea felt a small spark of relief. Good. Stay like that. Stay absolutely still. But Earth shook again. Harder. Faster. The fissures widened. A thin pillar of black smoke burst from the largest crack, followed by a sound so deep it vibrated through the atmosphere and into the stars. It wasn't an animal sound. It wasn't a roar. It was a memory of hunger echoing across time. Rhea's eyes filled with tears she couldn't hold back as she whispered, "We woke it." And in that moment, every Dominion warrior, every human engineer, every alien in the watching galaxy felt the same terrifying truth. Earth shook with a force that no human alive had ever felt, a deep rolling tremor that rose from the planet's core like something ancient was pushing upward through layers of stone, ice, and history. Inside the Arctic railgun facility, every alarm flickered uselessly as Commander Rhea Talon gripped the railing so tightly her knuckles turned white, watching the seismic graph spike again. Higher, sharper, deadlier. The engineers around her whispered prayers, some backed away from the screens, others bit their lips to stop themselves from crying, because the movement below was no longer slow or distant. It was climbing upward with a rhythm like the heartbeat of a giant whose patience was finally drained. Above ground, Antarctica cracked open in long glowing lines that stretched across the frozen desert, and pillars of steam burst upward like volcanic breathing. The sky dimmed, not from clouds, but from the thin layer of dust rising as the ice split apart. Humans on the surface fled toward emergency bunkers, but every step felt meaningless, like running away from a mountain that decided to stand up after a million years of sleep. Far above, Admiral Cora watched the glowing cracks from orbit, her throat so tight she couldn't swallow. Her fleet, once a symbol of unstoppable conquest, now floated in total silence, every system shut down, every engine frozen, every warrior holding their breath because Rhea's warning repeated endlessly in their heads. "If you move, it will find you." Many Dominion soldiers whispered, "Why is it coming up now? Why now?" But the answer was obvious, heavy, terrifying. The railgun's upward shot had disturbed the ice in ways that should never have happened, vibrations echoing deep into the earth, waking something that was never supposed to feel the world again. Rhea's voice echoed weakly through the emergency broadcast channel. "We must buy time. Just a few minutes. Just enough for the railgun coils to cool. Please, do not move." On the Dominion flagship, Cora closed her eyes and forced her terrified crew to remain still. "Do nothing. she whispered. We are shadows. We are dust. We do not exist. Even speaking made guilt rush through her. What if the sound alone traveled into the planet? Down in the railgun core chamber, steam flooded the floor. Rhea's assistant stumbled while checking the power coils, yelling, "Commander, the cooling system is failing." The last shot overheated the coils twice the safe limit. If we fire again too soon. Rhea slammed her palm onto the console so hard it echoed across the chamber. If we don't fire, the world ends. The engineers froze. They had never heard her raise her voice like that. She knew the truth. If that creature reached the surface, no weapon in the galaxy, not Dominion, not Council, not humans, could stop it. The railgun was humanity's only hope. It was built for this purpose. It was designed to kill this thing. And right now, it might not work. Rhea forced herself to breathe, even as tears formed in her eyes. "Please, hold together," she whispered to the massive railgun as though it were a living creature. "Just one more shot. One more." A deeper tremor shook the planet, so powerful that snow lifted from the ground in spirals, and the ocean near Antarctica rippled unnaturally. The fissure widened, wide enough that something enormous inside the Earth shifted visibly, pushing up with slow but unstoppable force. A faint glow shimmered beneath the crack, golden, pulsing, like a massive eye opening beneath miles of rock. Dominion ships witnessed it from orbit and cried out in terror. Some clung to support bars. Some fell to the ground. Some whispered apologies to every god they ever failed. Cora stared, mouth trembling. What is that thing? Why did humans bury it instead of killing it? Rhea's voice came through again, shaking but furious. Because even when we tried to kill it, it survived. And because killing it wrong could break the entire planet. Cora felt her stomach twist. Then what did your ancestors do? Rhea whispered in a tone that broke every heart listening. They gave up half the world to bury it. Millions died. Entire continents cracked. But they trapped it, barely. Cora covered her mouth. Your species faced that, and survived. Rhea didn't answer. She was too busy watching the cooling numbers tick down painfully slow on her screen, each second feeling like a year. The railgun coils cooled from 40,000 degrees to 35,000 to 32,000, but they needed to drop to 10,000 to fire safely. And the tremors were getting worse. A sudden shockwave blasted from beneath Antarctica, knocking Rhea and 3 engineers off their feet. Metal tables crashed. Screens fell. Sirens blared. A massive crack split the floor as if something below was pressing upward violently. Rhea screamed, "Status! Give me the cooling status!" The engineer stuttered, voice cracking in panic. 29,000 degrees. We won't make it in time." Rhea pulled herself up, gripping the console with both hands, eyes full of tears and fury. "We will fire no matter what. Even if it destroys the railgun." Her assistant shouted, "But it could destroy half the planet if it explodes, and if that thing rises, it destroys all of it." Rhea shouted back, eyes blazing with a courage the galaxy would remember forever. Another tremor hit, stronger than all before. The fissure in Antarctica erupted upward with molten steam and shards of ice, as if a monster the size of a mountain had punched toward the sky. A low roar, so deep it felt like the ground itself was screaming, echoed across the world. Humans cried out. Dominion warriors sobbed. Even species watching from distant observatories fell silent in terror as the sound rippled across their feeds. Cora's voice cracked as she whispered, "Why is this thing waking now, after so many years?" And Rhea whispered the answer with grief burning inside her soul. "Because we fired upward today. The railgun's protection pattern broke. It senses weakness. It thinks we are blind." Cora trembled. Can the railgun kill it again? Rhea closed her eyes, tears sliding silently. "I don't know." The room shook one final time, hard enough that lights exploded, pipes burst, and the chamber ceiling cracked open with falling ice crystals. In that moment, the seismic monitor flashed red and displayed the most terrifying message possible. Surface breach imminent. Rhea felt her heart collapse into a single painful beat. She whispered the sentence she hoped she'd never need to say out loud, "It's rising." And above Antarctica, the ice exploded as something enormous pushed toward daylight. The galaxy held its breath. Humanity stared in horror. The Dominion fleet froze in helpless fear. And deep beneath Earth, the monster humanity feared most finally opened its eye. Antarctica shattered like thin glass beneath a rising mountain of force, the ground heaving upward as something massive pushed against the ice from below, and Commander Rhea Talon felt her lungs tighten so hard it hurt to breathe while alarms screamed and engineers stumbled amid collapsing equipment, because the moment they had feared for thousands of years was here. The ancient creature was no longer sleeping. It was climbing toward the world above. The entire Arctic Railgun facility shook like it was sitting on the back of a waking titan. Pipes bursting, cables ripping loose, metal groaning as if begging for mercy. Rhea's fingers danced desperately across the console as she tried to stabilize the weapon's cooling coils, her voice cracking with stress as she yelled, "Give me coil temperature now." A terrified engineer shouted through smoke and falling debris, 24,000 degrees, Commander. It's dropping too slowly." Rhea slammed her fist down, tears in her eyes. "We need under 10,000 to fire. The railgun cannot handle another shot." But she already knew deep inside her chest that none of that mattered now. Either they fired too early and risked destroying half the planet, or they let the creature reach the surface and watch the entire world fall. Above ground, Antarctica erupted upward in a violent explosion of steam, light, and molten ice as cracks widened into enormous glowing valleys. A deafening roar, not a roar of lungs but the roar of the Earth itself, thundered through the planet, sending shockwaves all the way to orbit. Dominion ships trembled under the force, knocking warriors off their feet. Admiral Cora clung to her chair, heart beating like a trapped animal. She watched in frozen horror as a gigantic shadow moved beneath the ice, its shape impossible to understand. Too large, too ancient, too wrong. Cora whispered, That thing is alive, it's alive." Her officers shook their heads violently, eyes wide with a fear they never knew existed. "Commander Rhea, what is that?" Cora begged into the comms. "What is that thing?" Rhea swallowed her terror, wiping blood from her forehead where debris struck her. "It's what humanity almost died fighting long before your species evolved. It's the reason we pretend to be weak. It's the reason we built the railgun. It's the reason we stay silent. It's older than human civilization. It doesn't think like life. It only hungers." Cora's heart cracked. Hungers for what? Rhea whispered the word the galaxy would never forget, life. Another tremor ripped through the facility, twisting metal beams and shattering screens. Engineers screamed as the floor cracked open beneath one of the control consoles. Rhea reached out and grabbed one falling officer, pulling them to safety with strength she didn't know she had. "Stay with me," she shouted, her voice shaking with terror and leadership all at once. "We are humanity. We do not run. We do not bow. We do not let this thing win again." Dominion soldiers watching her through their screens felt something break inside them. It wasn't fear anymore, it was respect. Even in the face of an extinction-level monster, a human still stood tall. Above Earth, the creature pushed again, sending another massive pulse of energy into the atmosphere, dimming the auroras and making the entire planet flicker like a dying light bulb. Rhea screamed through the intercom, "It's breaching the surface. How much longer until cooling?" Her team cried out, 21,000 degrees. "It's not enough. It's not enough." Rhea clenched her fists, tears of rage burning her eyes. "We don't have time. It'll reach the surface in less than 2 minutes." Cora suddenly shouted from orbit, "Then let us help." Rhea looked up, shocked. "Help? You'll die if you move." Cora gritted her teeth. "We are already dead if that thing leaves Earth." Rhea stared at the Dominion commander through the flickering screen. For the first time, she didn't see an enemy. She saw another warrior ready to stand against the impossible. Cora continued, voice trembling but unbroken. "Our ships have cooling beams. We can channel thermal siphon tech into the planet. We can slow the heat around your railgun chamber." Rhea blinked in disbelief. You would do that, for us? Cora shook her head. Not for you. For all of us. Rhea swallowed hard. Do it. All ships, begin siphon beams. On my mark. Dominion warriors screamed to turn on their systems. Engines hummed dangerously. Shields crackled. And every ship unleashed a blue funnel of cooling energy toward Antarctica. The creature roared again, this time louder, angrier, as the beams struck the ice. The fissure widened violently, sending pieces of ancient glacier flying kilometers into the sky. Dominion officers screamed, it's breaking through, but the cooling beams reached the underground chambers. The railgun temperature plunged. 20,000 degrees. 17,000. 14,000. 11,000. Almost there. Almost. Then the floor exploded. A massive claw the size of a skyscraper punched upward through the ice, made of bone and glowing veins of molten gold. Dominion ships screamed in absolute terror. Rhea's heart nearly stopped. Coil temperature. 10,000. Commander. It's ready. Rhea didn't wait. She didn't think. She slammed the firing controls with both hands. Firing railgun, now. The entire Earth shook as the railgun charged, screaming with burning light and ancient power. And then, a second railshot tore through the planet with a blinding flash. Straight down. Straight into the monster's rising body. The roar that followed was not a sound. It was a wound ripping through the atmosphere. Dominion ships spun violently. Ice collapsed. The earth cracked. The creature howled as the railshot burned through its chest. Rhea screamed, hit confirmed, hit confirmed. But before anyone could celebrate, the seismic monitor blinked a new message, one more terrifying than all before, multiple heartbeats detected. Rhea froze. Dominion froze. The galaxy froze. The creature they just struck was not alone. The moment the seismic monitor flashed multiple heartbeats detected, the entire Arctic railgun chamber fell into a silence so suffocating that even the alarms seemed to hold their breath. And Commander Rhea Talon stared at the message with her heart freezing inside her chest as if someone had reached in and squeezed it tight because humans had always believed the ancient terror buried under Antarctica was one single creature, one nightmare from Earth's forgotten age, one unstoppable monster they barely defeated once. But now the screens were telling her the truth no human mind was prepared to accept. There wasn't one heartbeat. There were three, growing louder, stronger, clearer with each seismic pulse. Above ground, Antarctica shook violently, causing the ice shelves to collapse into the ocean like falling walls of glass, and bright molten cracks spread outward like golden veins across the frozen desert as if something enormous underneath was stretching its limbs after a million years of sleep. Dominion ships in orbit screamed as their seismic sensors synchronized with Earth's, showing three beating signatures rising from deep within the crust. Admiral Cora's face drained of all color, her voice a broken whisper, 3. There are 3 of them. Her officers staggered back, some falling against consoles, others gripping their helmets in disbelief, their warrior pride melting into pure terror as they realized the rail shot they fired earlier only wounded one creature. 2 more were waking because of the chaos. Rhea felt oxygen leave her lungs as she grabbed the console and shouted, "This isn't possible. There should be only one. Our records never mentioned more than one." But the ancient files she studied suddenly made horrifying sense. The warnings didn't say the sleeper. They said the sleepers. Plural. Rhea's assistant pointed at the graph, voice shaking uncontrollably. "Commander, they're spreading, moving up, accelerating. If even one reaches the surface." She cut him off with a trembling scream, "I know." Another shockwave erupted beneath the continent, knocking Rhea and her entire team to the ground as explosions ripped along the facility walls. Metal tore open, ice poured through the cracks, and the entire underground chamber shook like a ship sinking into a boiling sea. On the surface, a massive pillar of molten ice exploded upward as the wounded creature, the one struck by the railgun, thrashed violently beneath Antarctica, its colossal golden veins glowing through the fissures like a burning star trapped inside the earth, and Dominion ships felt the heat so intensely that some hulls began to melt on their lower decks. Cora screamed, "Turn the ships away from the glow. Shut down everything. Don't let them feel US." But the creatures already did. Their heartbeats grew faster. Louder. Angrier. Rhea pulled herself back to her feet, coughing through smoke and dust, blood running down her cheek, one hand gripping the console as if it was the only thing holding her to life. She forced her voice to stay steady as she spoke into the global emergency channel. We need to fire again. We need to hit the other two before they breach the surface. An engineer cried out from the back. The railgun coils are burning. A second early shot nearly destroyed the foundation. A third will collapse the entire region. Rhea snapped back with fire in her voice. If they come out, the region won't matter. The world will die. Dominion officers listened in horror as a human, already battered, bleeding, exhausted, still stood against monsters their empire would never dare fight. Rhea checked the coil temperature. 11,000 degrees. Still too high. Cooling was failing. Pipes burst. The chamber filled with steam. Her assistant screamed, "Commander, cooling system offline. WE can't fire. The railgun will." Suddenly the entire facility shook so violently that consoles flipped over, glass shattered, lights exploded, and a deep cracking noise echoed through the underground chamber like a giant claw dragging down the walls. Something massive had reached the foundation. Rhea's eyes widened with impossible fear. They're right under us. Another deafening pulse traveled through the ground. 3 heartbeats now in perfect rhythm. Cora saw the graph too and whispered, "They're coordinating. They're pack predators." The idea alone broke her mind. Rhea leaned over the console, her voice a broken whisper. "We can't stop 3. We barely stopped 1. For the first time, the raw emotion in her voice wasn't command, it was dread. But she pushed herself up anyway, refusing to fall, refusing to bow to fear. No, humanity fought you once, humanity will fight you again. Her team watched her with tear-filled eyes, knowing she was pushing herself beyond human limits, standing between extinction and survival with nothing but determination. Then the facility floor buckled violently, splitting open as lava-like light burst upward from the cracks. Engineers screamed as they leaped out of the way. Rhea held onto the console while the room tilted dangerously. Above ground, something enormous, the wounded creature, forced its limb upward beneath the melting ice, creating a massive dome-like bulge. The Dominion fleet saw it and trembled as the bulge grew and grew until the ice around it snapped outward like shattering glass. A single massive limb tore through the surface, glowing veins swirling with molten gold, dripping black smoke as if the earth itself was burning on its skin. Dominion soldiers sobbed. Some fainted. Cora whispered, "It is reaching for the sky." Another heartbeat. Another glow. The other 2 creatures were reaching upward too. Rhea felt her heart break as she realized the truth. They're responding to the wounded one. They're coming to help it. 3 giant shadows moved beneath Antarctica. And the railgun was seconds from total failure. Rhea's assistant screamed, "Commander, the creature is only 30 meters below the surface. The others are right behind IT. The railgun can't charge in time." Rhea grabbed her radio and screamed with everything left inside her soul. "We need help. Anyone who can hear this. We need anything that can hold them back for 1 minute. Just 1 minute, please." And then, a 4th signal appeared. A heartbeat that did not belong to the monsters. A heartbeat massive, mechanical, human. The entire facility shook, not from the creatures, but from something activating deep beneath the railgun chambers. Something ancient. Something built long before Rhea was born. Something the railgun was only one part of. Dominion sensors went blind. Earth sensors overloaded. The ground vibrated with a new frequency. Stronger, older, angrier. Rhea turned slowly as her screen displayed a message she had only seen once in ancient files. Titan Protocol, Awakening. The railgun wasn't the only weapon hidden under Antarctica. Something far bigger was waking up. The moment the underground chamber flashed the message Titan Protocol, Awakening, the entire Arctic railgun facility vibrated with a force that did not come from the 3 ancient monsters rising beneath Antarctica, but from something hidden even deeper, something humanity had buried so far beneath the ice that even the most classified archives only whispered about it in fragmented lines of fear and awe. And Commander Rhea Talon staggered backward with her. Eyes wide open, staring at the message on the cracked monitor as the chamber lights flickered violently and giant steel walls trembled like sheets of paper under a hurricane. because the protocol that now activated was never meant to be triggered unless Earth was at the edge of extinction. Dominion ships in orbit detected the new seismic pulse, and their officers screamed in confusion and terror as their screens filled with readings that made no sense. Frequencies too perfect, too structured, too mechanical to be natural, yet too powerful and ancient to be modern. Admiral Cora's breath froze inside her chest as she whispered, "What? Now what have the humans awakened? What is this?" Her officers backed away from their screens as a new reading appeared. A fourth mass, larger than all three monsters combined, rising from a depth no living creature should survive. Rhea's heart pounded so hard she felt it echo in her skull as the ground beneath her boots shifted, the railgun chamber cracking open in long jagged lines that revealed blinding white light beneath the floor. Not the molten gold of the monsters, but a sharp metallic white glow. Controlled, alive, engineered. The entire room trembled like an enormous engine was powering up under Antarctica. Rhea screamed over the roaring vibrations. "Back away from the floor. Now!" Her engineers jumped aside as giant steel plates snapped upward like broken teeth, and beneath them, something began to rise. Slowly, heavily, as though the planet itself was giving birth to a machine older than recorded history. A deafening metallic howl ripped through the chamber, a sound so ancient and full of fury that the Dominion fleet above Earth fell into helpless silence. Warriors who had never bowed to any enemy sank to their knees, trembling, because this sound wasn't a creature's roar. It was the awakening of a weapon forged for the end of the world. Rhea grabbed the railing as dust fell like rain from the ceiling, whispering through shaking lips, I can't believe it. It's real. The Titan is real." Engineers stared in horror and wonder as a massive metal surface emerged from the abyss. Armor thicker than mountains, engraved with symbols older than human language, pulsing with cold white light. Dominion sensors went into meltdown as they scanned the rising mass. One terrified officer choked, "It's a machine. But the energy. It's like a star, contained," Cora whispered, tears of fear and awe in her eyes. Humans built this." Rhea shook her head painfully. "No, we didn't build it. We inherited it." The Titan rose higher, revealing enormous claws made of alloy unknown to the galaxy, cables thicker than trees running along its limbs, each movement sending shockwaves through the ground and tossing dust into the air. It wasn't an animal. It wasn't a robot. It wasn't even a weapon. It was a guardian, one built by the ancestors who first fought the monster species millions of years ago. Suddenly, the entire continent shook with a monstrous scream. The wounded creature had nearly reached the surface, its colossal golden limb fully exposed above the ice, veins glowing with molten fury as it dragged itself upward, calling to the other two beneath. Another heartbeat, then a second, then a third, thundered through the crust, synchronized, enraged, unstoppable. The Titan responded. Its massive head, 5 times larger than the railgun chamber, rose into view, white eyes burning with blinding light as ancient systems locked onto the creatures below. Rhea watched the scanners, her eyes trembling violently. "It's targeting them, it's targeting all three," the Titan roared, a metallic roar that split ice, rattled orbiting ships, and shattered every Dominion warrior's last illusion of control. Then its chest began to open. A brilliant core revealed itself, spinning like a contained supernova, beams of white energy spiraling out in small arcs as though it were tasting the air after millennia of silence. Rhea screamed as she realized what was coming. "Everyone get down. The Titan is preparing a full discharge." Dominion officers yelled, "Turn the ships away. Shields UP, NO, down, NO, everything OFF. WE don't know what it will do." But they were too late. Beneath the Titan, the three monsters accelerated upward at terrifying speed, their combined roars sending cracks racing across Antarctica like spider webs, entire ice shelves collapsing into the ocean. The first monster, wounded but furious, pushed its massive skull against the thin layer of remaining ice, ready to break through. The ground glowed bright gold and white at once, two forces ready to collide. Rhea's heart hammered. "Titan, please, please fire, please." The Titan's core surged with blinding brilliance. The ice exploded upward. A monstrous eye burst through the surface. And just as the world fell into blinding chaos, The Titan's core unleashed a beam so bright it turned night into day across half the planet. A beam aimed not at the monster, but through the continent. Through the planet. Straight into space. The Dominion fleet gasped as the beam shot past them, missing everything. Cora screamed. It missed. How? Rhea stared at her screen, eyes widening in absolute terror. It didn't miss. The Titan was not firing at the monsters. It was firing at something behind them. Something deeper. Something older. New seismic readings exploded across the monitors, a fourth heartbeat. One older than all others. One so massive the graph broke. Rhea's voice shattered with fear. Oh God, there aren't 3 monsters. The ground tore apart. The sea boiled. The Titan roared in warning. There are 4. Antarctica collapsed into blinding light, and everything went black.